Don't mind her. She lives off our parents. My brother Owen said it to his groomsmen at his wedding suit fitting, loudly enough for the entire tailor shop to hear. Then he laughed, as if reducing my life to a joke was simply part of the celebration. I was standing behind him, adjusting the cuff of his jacket because our mother had asked me to help. I pulled my sleeve down, but I was a second too slow. Caleb Ross, Owen's best man, saw the long burn scar running from my wrist toward my elbow. His smile vanished. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "Work," I said. Caleb had served as an army ranger before becoming a county fire investigator. Years earlier, after a tornado tore through an industrial park, I had shut down a leaking chemical line and braced a failing beam while his rescue team carried 3 trapped workers outside. A ruptured steam pipe burned my arm. Caleb had seen the injury before I was airlifted, but he had never learned my name. Now he stared at me, then quietly pulled out his phone. Owen smirked. "What are you doing?" Caleb did not answer. 20 minutes later, 2 county fire marshals entered the tailor shop carrying a permit packet. The older marshal looked past Owen, our father, and the groomsmen, directly at me. "Ms. Mercer, did you authorize a wedding for 300 guests at Holloway Mill?" I placed Owen's jacket on the counter. "No." The room went silent. The younger marshal opened the packet. "This application includes an owner consent letter, a structural clearance certificate, and an insurance declaration. All 3 carry your signature." My mother, Ruth, whispered, "What owner consent?" I held out my hand. The signature looked convincing until I noticed a tiny break in the final stroke. Someone had copied it from an old workshop lease I had signed for my parents and pasted it onto new documents. Owen's voice tightened. "This is a misunderstanding." Caleb looked at him. "A misunderstanding doesn't create a false occupancy letter." My father studied the papers, then looked at me. "Why are they calling you the owner?" I could have exposed everything in front of the whole wedding party. Instead, I straightened Owen's cuff and said, "Because I am." The fitting ended before anyone took another measurement. Holloway Mill was an abandoned machine shop where my father had worked as an apprentice. When the hardware store he later opened lost its lease, I bought the mill through Northline Structural Holdings, the company I had built from disaster inspections. I let my parents use the front workshop rent-free. They never asked who owned Northline. Owen called it an investor's tax project, and I eventually stopped correcting him. At family dinners, I remained the unreliable daughter with a duffel bag, no permanent office, and another temporary job after every storm or factory fire. Nobody considered that emergency engineering rarely came with a predictable address. That evening, the family gathered in my parents' kitchen. My mother placed an old brass key on the table. It had once belonged to my father when he worked at the mill. I had returned it after buying the building and changing the locks. "Brooke said your company gave the family full use," Mom said. "Workshop use," I replied. "Not public events, renovations, or a wedding." My father rubbed both hands over his face. Owen said the ballroom was approved. "There is no ballroom. There is a machine floor with an unstable east wall and a roof truss waiting for reinforcement." Owen entered through the back door. "Then reinforce it before the wedding." "The wedding is in 3 weeks. Then move the inspection date." My mother said, almost hopefully, "Couldn't you just make it work?" I looked at Owen. "Why did you send invitations before asking the owner?" "Because you're never here." There it was, the answer he felt safe giving. Owen had stayed in Millfield and worked beside our father. I traveled because my contracts ended only when damaged buildings were safe. To my family, his presence counted more than everything I quietly paid for. "You disappear for months," he continued, "then come home and act like a signature makes you important." I picked up the brass key. "A signature is exactly what you used to pretend I agreed." Owen stormed out. My mother cried. My father asked if I planned to cancel the wedding. "I didn't schedule it," I said. "I can't cancel it. I can only refuse access to my building." The next morning, my electronic key card would not open the mill's side office. Someone had removed my access from the control panel. Inside, white tape marked a dance floor across an area labeled for load testing. Folding chairs stood beneath a red "Do Not Occupy" tag someone had covered with ribbon. I photographed everything. Then Brooke, Owen's fiancée, stepped out of the office holding a clipboard. She smiled as though I were late to a meeting she had arranged for me. "I was going to call," she said. "You removed my access." The planner needed 1 administrator. Too many people changing things gets messy. "My building is not your seating chart." Her smile never moved. "Owen warned me you might feel threatened once this became real." It was the kind of sentence polished enough for church and cruel enough to keep. She described a ceremony under the crane rails, dinner beside the old lathes, and a decorative curtain hiding the damaged east wall. Her clipboard contained a draft magazine article nomming Brooke as creative director of Holloway House and Owen as operations manager. My parents were called the Legacy family. I was not mentioned. Who owns Holloway House? I asked. Brooke tapped the page. We're still shaping the language. Try shaping it around the truth. She closed the clipboard. The truth is that you bought a building nobody could use, and Owen turned it into something the town can love. You always arrive with rules after other people have done the emotional work. Behind her, the old brass key hung from a nail. Where did you get that? Brooke covered it with her hand. Owen gave it to me. Her eyes changed for half a second. That was the first useful answer she gave me. I left the key beneath her hand and walked out. By lunchtime, Brooke had posted a photograph of herself, and Owen beneath a sign reading Our Family Story continues here. She announced that their wedding would launch Holloway House as Millfield's newest event venue. When someone asked whether I would attend, Brooke replied, "She travels. We'll see whether she can make time for family." I read that twice. Then I called the Mill's insurer, the county permit office, and my attorney, Denise Harper. I asked Denise to preserve the upload history of every document connected to Holloway Mill. I did not call Brooke. Before dinner, a caterer called asking whether Northline wanted the final invoice divided between the wedding and the venue launch. Brooke had named my company as financial guarantor. I asked him to email the original booking form and preserve every revision. The first version named Owen. After his deposit was declined, the second version carried Northline's address and my copied signature. That evening, Mom came to my garage apartment carrying a casserole neither of us wanted. "People are saying you're jealous," she said. "Are you?" "Of what? Being invited to watch someone steal from me." She looked down. "I don't understand why you never told us what you had. What would you have done with the information?" "We would have been proud." I waited. She remembered the jokes she had repeated, the time she introduced me as between jobs, and the Christmas Owen gave me a gas card because everyone assumed I could not afford the drive home. She remembered asking me to sleep above the garage so Brooke's relatives could have the guest room. She had accepted my help for years without asking what it cost. "You stayed quiet," she finally said. "Because silence was safer than explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me." Her eyes filled. "What happens now?" "Now I find out how far they went." The answer came in pieces. The county portal showed that Brooke had replaced an authentic workshop use letter with one permitting public gatherings. Copier records revealed files titled Owner Consent Signature Layer and HOLLOWAY Gift Announcement. A notarization had been assigned to Elaine Porter, a notary who had retired months earlier. Then Denise uncovered the deeper plan. Brooke had applied for a historic redevelopment grant using a draft management agreement giving Holloway House, LLC 10 years of control over my property and the right to collect event fees. I called Owen from the mill parking lot. "Did you read the management agreement?" Silence. Brooke said it was paperwork for the grant. "It gives her company control of my property." "Our company," he corrected. That confession came faster than any apology. "You formed it together." "It's just paperwork right now." "Did you tell Mom and Dad their hardware inventory is listed as collateral?" He breathed into the phone. "The store is failing." "It wasn't failing because of rent. I charged none. Owen had drawn against its credit line to cover wedding deposits and Holloway House startup expenses. Brooke needed the mill wedding to produce photographs, contracts, and publicity before the grant committee met. "Come home," Owen said. "We can solve this privately." "You made it public before you made it legal." I ended the call. On Sunday, Brooke escalated at church. After the service, she invited my parents forward and unveiled a framed rendering of the future venue. Across the bottom, gold letters read, HOLLOWAY Mill DONATED by the Mercer family. Applause began before my father finished reading it. Brooke turned toward me. "Marin, come join us. This was your father's dream long before it became your investment." Every face followed hers. Refusing would look heartless. Joining the photograph would look like consent. I walked forward, took the frame from my mother, and pointed to the logo in the corner. "Who approved this?" Brooke maintained her smile. "We all did." "No, you did." I handed it back. "Do not announce my property as a donation." Her voice dropped, but not enough. This is why your family can't depend on you. You only show up to take something away." For the first time, my father answered before I had to. "Brooke, that's enough." I left without defending myself. Caleb caught me in the parking lot. "The inspection date was changed to a day you were deployed in Louisiana. Your state response roster proves it." He held an evidence sleeve containing a silver flash drive. "The tailor found this under Owen's chair. Brooke's logo is on it. I didn't touch the contents." "Give it to Denise. Chain of custody matters." The drive contained scans of my signature and photographs of the brass key taken inside my parents' kitchen. Mom recognized Brooke's bracelet reflected in the toaster. I changed every electronic code, but deliberately left the mechanical rear lock untouched. I wanted to know whether Brooke would use the brass key after receiving formal notice that access was suspended. Under the active fire safety investigation, Caleb arranged a lawful camera at the rear gate. At 8:14 the next evening, Brooke unlocked it. She entered with a decorator and 2 men carrying lighting equipment. They rolled heavy cases across the load test area and began hanging fabric from the crane rail. The camera recorded Brooke telling them, "The owner is my sister-in-law. She signs whatever her parents ask her to sign." Then she held up the brass key as proof of authority. I watched the footage once. Owen watched it 3 times. He came to my office the next morning with red eyes and a paper cup crushed in his hand. She said it was only for appearances until the county meeting. "You believed the version that protected you from canceling deposits." He sat across from me, suddenly smaller than he had looked at the fitting. "I was trying to keep the store alive." "You spent store money before you had permission to use the building." "I thought once everyone saw the wedding, you wouldn't stop it." "You were counting on humiliating me into surrendering." He did not deny it. I slid a repayment agreement across the desk. It covered the store funds, legal expenses, and new security work, with monthly payments tied to his wages. "What if I don't sign?" he asked. "Then the insurer and county decide what happens next." He stared at the line for a long time, then signed his real name without anyone helping him. 4 days before the wedding, the County Preservation Board heard Brooke's emergency grant request. She arrived with renderings, press packets, and the confidence of someone who believed charm could outrun records. She described Holloway Mill as a family legacy placed in her care. She called the dispute family emotions, not safety concerns. The chair asked whether she had legal authority over the property. "The entire Mercer family has supported this project," Brooke replied. Denise placed a certified deed on the table showing Northline as sole owner, followed by the company record identifying me as Northline's owner. Caleb confirmed that the inspection date and structural clearance had been altered. The county clerk displayed upload logs tying the files to Brooke's laptop. Elaine Porter appeared by video and denied notarizing anything. Finally, Denise played the reargate recording. Brooke's own voice filled the hearing room. "She signs whatever her parents ask her to sign." Brooke turned toward me. "You set me up." "You received written notice," Caleb said. "Then you entered a restricted building during an active safety investigation." She looked at Owen. "Say something." He swallowed. "I knew store money was being used. I signed the management agreement. I didn't create the false documents, but I ignored what I should have questioned because I wanted the grant." Brooke's face changed more at his honesty than at any evidence. My mother stared at the floor. My father reached for her hand, but she folded both hands in her lap. For once, nobody looked at me to soften the consequences. The board denied the grant, referred the forged documents to the county attorney, and barred Holloway House from reapplying under the same ownership. My actual insurance remained valid because I had reported the fraud immediately. Brooke had invited reporters to cover her expected approval. Outside, she walked past them clutching the cracked venue rendering against her chest. The wedding did not happen at the mill. Brooke moved it to an interstate hotel and cut the guest list in half. Several vendors withdrew when they learned the venue had never been approved. I attended the ceremony, sat in the seat listed on my invitation, and left before the staged family photographs. I would not punish a marriage, but I would not help create another false picture. Owen still married her. They separated within a year. Brooke blamed his testimony. Owen blamed her pressure. Eventually, both had to acknowledge the choices they had made together. Brooke accepted a diversion agreement, repaid document and inspection costs, and surrendered every claim connected to the mill. Owen sold his interest in Holloway House, returned to reduced hours at the hardware store, and made every payment in our agreement. I did not restore his keycard. Repayment could settle a debt. It could not automatically rebuild trust. Mom wrote me an apology that listed each joke she had repeated and every time she had accepted my help without respecting its source. She did not ask me to forgive her. She simply left room for forgiveness to become possible. Dad apologized with a toolbox. One morning, he came to the mill and stopped outside the locked gate. The old brass key was still in his pocket, but he called me instead of using it. "Which wall am I allowed to work on?" he asked. Allowed. The word mattered. After the east wall was reinforced, the hardware store signed a real lease with clear access limits. Dad paid the first month early. Months later, Owen placed the crushed paper cup from my office on my desk. He had written the date of the hearing across it. "I kept thinking you were punishing me," he said, "but you were giving me a way to repair what I could." "I gave you a choice," I said. "You're the one who finally made the right one." Caleb and I became friends without turning my scar or the rescue into a ceremony. We talked about his daughter's science fair, his crooked backyard fence, roof loads, and ordinary things. After years of being valued only during emergencies, ordinary friendship felt strangely generous. When Holloway Mill finally reopened, the front remained a hardware workshop. The former machine floor became a training center for inspectors, firefighters, and young tradespeople. Every user signed in. Every restricted area was marked. Every door had one named person responsible for it. My mother placed Northline's ownership certificate inside the frame that had once held Brooke's fake rendering. It was not displayed as praise. It was kept as a record nobody could rewrite. On the first quiet evening after the training center opened, I walked through the building alone. The reinforced east wall stood straight. Sunset spilled through the high factory windows, turning the dust gold. The old brass key hung inside a glass box beside the rear door. Beneath it was a small plaque. "Access is not ownership. Trust is not permission." For a moment, my scar appeared in the reflection. Then it disappeared when I switched off the lights. All my life, my family had mistaken silence for weakness, absence for failure, and generosity for surrender. I had spent years believing that correcting them would make me seem arrogant. But truth does not become cruelty just because someone benefits from your silence. I locked the gate with my own key, heard the bolts settle into place, and left Holloway Mill exactly as I had chosen it to be. Safe, useful, and finally mine in every way that mattered.